Okay, we're here with Kathleen Lawless. Kathleen, how are you today?
I'm very well, Rick. Lovely to be here.
Great. Yeah, it's nice to be able to talk to you. Yeah, we have several projects going on with you with Barr26 Publishing, but can you first tell us just a little bit about yourself and how you got started writing?
Oh, just one of those things I always wanted to do. Big avid reader, as so many authors are. And I think I was in my teens and my grandfather said, "You read all the time. You should write your own book one day." And it's stuck in my mind.
Huh, okay. When did you actually write your first story, I guess, if not book?
I guess in the 70s. I mean, I'm really dating myself here, but picture me with borrowed typewriter and mountains of whiteout, trying to learn how to write a book with no guidance. Didn't know any writers, nothing online, no courses. It was a long process. So I am basically very self-taught.
Okay, wow. What the work that you came out with, I guess, then at first, do you look back at that and are you kind of proud of that stuff, or is it you never want to let it see the light of day?
It's hideous, Rick. That's my apprenticeship. And I am so eternally grateful that Amazon did not exist in those days, because I may have had the audacity to publish some of that very early, terrible work. And then it would be embarrassing and I'd be taking it down.
Oh, okay. That is something too. It's so nice, the technology that allows us to do this, but there's a kind of a caveat to it, because it's nice that we can all publish books, but since anybody can do it, do you feel it kind of dilutes the field a bit?
Yeah, it's a double-edged curse and blessing, because for a long time the gatekeepers were, the big half dozen in New York, and they basically decided what the reading public was going to be able to read.
Right.
That was very limiting, and I did publish with several big houses when I started off, like Simon and Schuster and Herbert Collins and Harlequin and Kensington. So I've definitely been around, and it is nice to know that there's quality going into those books. And I do see some self-published books that really should have stayed on the word processor.
Oh, yeah. Well, so that's interesting. You have worked with the big publishers. So what made you kind of maybe not switch, but you tried out self-publishing?
I could just see the changing tide. The publisher never bought as many books as I was able to write in a year. So, and you have to have more than one book out a year to make any sort of living. That was always my goal, to be making a living wage doing this. So self-publishing, I saw a lot of other writers I knew switching over and having great success, and I just jumped on the train.
Huh. I would
like to say the good thing about self-publishing is that, there's something for everyone now. And even little small niche readers or tropes or genres and subgenres that wouldn't have been published now get a readership. And I think that's excellent.
It really is. It's a more democratic space now. And obviously, as before, if you don't like something, you don't have to buy it. If it's out there for you, though, it's another opportunity.
Yes, exactly right.
So have you completely walked away from the big publishers at this point?
I have at this point, yes.
Okay.
I severed my ties years ago.
Interesting. I would imagine that since you had that experience and being published by the big names, you had more confidence going forward in this.
Definitely. I know how to craft a good novel. I know what goes into a good story. And I have worked with some of the best editors in the business. So I was very fortunate to have learned a lot from them.
Oh, I'll bet. So with us, you have... tell us about what you're publishing with us right now.
I'm very excited to have some of my books be going into audio. To me, that's just wonderful. It's another market. And I know as people get older, reading is tiring. Your eyes get tired. To be able to still have the love of story is a wonderful thing. The series that you're doing for me is called 7 Brides for 7 Brothers. And it's one of my favorite tropes because it's a found family. These men are brothers through love, not blood.
Okay. Is this your own series where you're writing all of the books?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many are done? How many books will there be? And how?
There's 7 books in the series. Each one of the brothers gets his happy ever after. There's an overall arc with the bad person. They get their comeuppance in the end.
Mhm.
And there's a couple of novellas. There's a prequel called Before the Brides, which I believe is available now. And then there's another prequel that kind of leads into my second series that was spun off of this. And it was just one of the secondary characters. Everyone fell in love with him. He was supposed to be just a little cameo role, and he took on his own life and demanded his own story. So I have a novella where he falls in love and it doesn't end well. And then I pick that up later on with a new series called Widows of the Wild West.
Okay. Now, that's interesting, too. I was speaking with a couple other authors about this, where you create this minor character and you have no idea how your readers are going to like or dislike anything. But you get enough feedback and you realize, oh, wait a minute, I've got this whole other thing that I can do.
Oh, totally. People really liked him, and he just kind of jumped off the page. He was such an interesting character. He's a treasure hunter. And that's not something you would commonly see in the Western historicals. He's come from England, and he's searching for a sunken ship of lost black pearls.
Okay.
And it just became very fun. I did a lot of research on it. It's very credible. And yeah.
So how many books will that end up being, that new series?
I'm not sure. The new series, I've got 2 out now, at least 3, possibly more. Just, it's when you get time, because I'm working on an entirely different series right now that I'm quite about. So, yeah, it's a matter of time.
I don't suppose, do you ever switch between books, or do you just kind of write one at a time?
No, I always work on at least 2 at a time.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I do, the mornings are my best time for fresh writing, new words. But then by sort of 1 o'clock, that's done. So then I pick up a different one and I can edit all afternoon.
Interesting.
It works right and left.
That's actually similar to how I work with my voiceovers, where the mornings are the best time. I've got to use my voice early, and then the end of the day is for editing. So
yeah, there you go. You understand the process.
Mm-hmm. And in your what you've been doing with audiobooks now, this is kind of brand new for you, right?
Yes, very exciting.
Who is your narrator?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me that hard question.
Okay.
I can't remember either of their names. I feel bad about that. I've got a Proxy Bride book out there. It's the same fellow that did most of the Proxy Bride books.
Oh, okay.
And then somebody else. He lives in China. Does that help? Do you know the narrators?
Was that Jameson Walker?
Yes. Thank
you. There you go. Yeah, he's been really prolific and great for us. So
yeah, happy working with him.
When you first kind of heard the voice, and especially when the final product was delivered that first time, how was that jarring at all to hear a voice put to your words that you had crafted?
No, it was fabulous.
Yeah.
As somebody who strictly works with the written word, to hear my story audioly for the first time was just like, wow. I wrote this.
Yeah, that's great. And this is such a huge market right now too. There's people are always clamoring for new content. They like to listen in their cars, on planes, just sitting around. And like you said, it's a little
vacuuming everything.
Well,
right?
yeah. And like you said, even aside from the older generation, it's just easier to access audio than it is to pick up a book and read.
Yeah, it's so simple now.
It is. So you're working on a couple different things right now. What's planned for the future? Are you strictly romance?
I am strictly romance. Yes, I did one romantic suspense, but I can't help it. I love a love story, and it's always front and center with what I'm doing.
I think it's interesting how, like you said, there's always a happy ending, and in all of these series, they're individual stories and characters. So that kind of fleshes out everything. But there are certain things you have to have happen. You can't have an unhappy ending, right?
I don't think so, unless you're a man writing what he considers romance, and then the woman always dies at the end.
Oh my gosh.
Read
Well,
Nicholas Sparks. That's their idea of a happy ending. The woman's dead. It's
wow.
just really depressing that that's
Oh my
touted
gosh.
as romance.
I guess so. Huh. Okay.
I'm thinking
Yeah.
of English Patient. There's a really famous one. She died in the plane crash.
Right. Okay.
So
Well,
that's considered a romance. It's not a romance unless they stroll off into the sunset hand in hand.
okay. Well, I guess there's always different ways to look at it. Well, where can we find you? Give us maybe a website or some social media accounts.
Oh, yes. My website, I'm quite proud of it. It's all brand new. It's www.kathleenlawless.com. And I'm pretty active on Facebook as Kathleen Lawless, and a little bit on Instagram, not so much on Twitter. Just trying to have a little bit of a presence on TikTok. There's so many. I'm trying to figure out what's my comfort level.
Yeah, that can be challenging if you're not familiar with it, and there's so many different things to do, and it's useful. It certainly is, but you have to kind of find what's going to work for you specifically.
I know. I love the ability to interact with my readers, which
Hmm.
is something that's not as easy when you're traditionally published. But I do miss those days of I just wrote a book, turned it in, and they did all the rest of the work.
Well, I'm sure.
I really miss that because, writing is only half the job now.
Yeah, that's a really good point. When you talk about doing this yourself, you are really doing everything yourself, unless you hire out some of the work.
Yeah.
But that cuts into your profits, and you have to kind of balance that as well.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just easier to do it yourself. But being
Absolutely.
your own publisher is not for somebody looking to make a quick buck.
No, not at all. When did you actually start self-publishing? How long have you been doing this?
I had a couple of books that didn't quite fit in the niche of what the traditional houses wanted. That was probably back in maybe around 13 or 15.
Hmm.
And then I got very, very serious 4 years ago. I had rights back from a lot of my traditionally published books so that I could reissue them with new covers and new titles in some instances.
Hmm.
And so I think about 4 years ago, I decided to quit the soul-sucking day job and go at this full time.
Awesome. And it's
Yeah.
worked out for you.
It's worked out great. I couldn't be happier. And actually, with the pandemic, my timing was really good.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. That certainly upended all of our lives in some way, but there
Yeah.
were some positives.
Definitely. People were definitely reading more, but I was so grateful to have the work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Kathleen, thank you so much for taking the time for this. Folks, you know where to find her, and just check out her work, the written word and the audio.
Yes. Thank you so much, Rick.